Have you been looking for the perfect budget case that fits the bill at the $50 price mark but has the looks of a $90 plus case? Maybe something that offers sweet, stylish looks without sacrificing functionality and cheaping out on the build quality. Well, let me tell you, you're in the right place because Cooler Master's new MasterBox Lite 5 is a budget heavy hitter offering superior quality at a very inexpensive price. Hey, what's up guys? My name is JD from JDTechGear and welcome back to the channel where we discuss PC passion, tech reviews, unboxings, and setup design. So if you're into that sort of thing, consider subscribing and checking out the rest of the channel. So today we're taking a deep look into the MasterBox Lite 5. So this chassis is available at multiple retailers for $50 US. This is a ATX mid-tower case with support for micro ATX and mini ITX boards. The side window panel is not tempered glass, it is acrylic, but a very nice acrylic nonetheless. It's sturdy and slightly tinted in the light. The case is 18.4 inches long by 17 inches high and 7 inches deep. So the case is slightly more compact than a traditional ATX case, but it doesn't sacrifice too much room inside since the inside of this case is beautiful and nice and wide open. Perfect for some compact water cooling or supporting a large GPU. Speaking of which, there is a GPU clearance of 40 centimeters, which is plenty of room, even if you plan to put a full-size potato in it. For fan and radiator support, you can fit 3 120mm or 2 140mm fans in the front and 1 120mm fan in the back. Yes, there is no fan or rad mounting for the top of the case. The top is completely sealed off and is non-removable. This is a compact case, so top fan mounting is not supported, although it would have been nice if there was at least some sort of ventilation at the top, even without fans pulling air in from the top. For storage options, there's one SSD mounting plate in the front of the case to display, and also two 3.5-inch mounting bays at the bottom of the case, which is located in the basement and can be accessed from the rear of the case. The two trays at the bottom supports two 3.5-inch bays and also supports 2.5-inch drives as well. And also the mounting process is very well done with a simple expand and collapse mounting system. To install the 3.5-inch drive, you simply press down on the tab on the bottom of the tray and expand it. Place the drive inside and align it with the mounting holes and then push the sides together to lock it in place. A very simple and easy way to install drives. For the SSD mounting plate in the front, you can unscrew the plate with a thumb screw and unhinge it, then screw in the SSD with the provided drive mounting screws. Inside the PSU basement is a simple mounting system to install your PSU. There are two thumb screws to remove the faceplate and then slide the PSU into place in the basement. Secure in the PSUs by screwing in 4 mounting holes as normal and then attach the faceplate with the thumb screws. In this example here, I'm using a 700 watt non-modular power supply, which is a more compact size than the fully modular variants, but at least you can see there is plenty of room for larger PSUs. The basement is also very well ventilated with vents covering the entire surface of the basement cover, or at least almost the entire surface. Also, there are cable holes to route cables to the bottom of the motherboard as well, which may seem simple, but is very handy for cable management. Additionally, there is also a dust filter underneath the PSU. Moving on to the rest of the features to list off, the front I/O includes 2 USB 3.0 ports, mic in and headphone jack, HDD light, power button, and a very tiny reset button. The power button isn't cheaply made either and clicks nicely. Perhaps they'll start using Cherry MX mechanical switches on power buttons on cases. JK. But anyways, that reset button though, it's tiny. Personally, this doesn't bother me, but you will need something with a fine point to press the button. Perhaps the reset button is so tiny to keep it from being accidentally pressed. I know I have done that several times reaching over to plug in headphones or a flash drive. Moving on to the next set of features, the MasterBox Lite 5 includes 7 expansion slots and 1 fan in the rear. The fan included is actually decent quality and fairly quiet at full speed. The expansion slots can be a little tricky to remove as you have to unscrew them and pull them out tightly as if they were tabs. Note that these expansion slots were pulled out after the motherboard was installed, which may have made it a little bit more difficult due to the compact nature of the case. As for my Thermaltake Versa C21 and Phanteks Entho Pro, pulling out the expansion slots after installation of the motherboard was no problem. This case also features a little bit of modularity, which is surprising for this price point. The red trim on the top and bottom of the front panel can be replaced with either white or black accents, which is really neat. And also you can 3D print these trim pieces as well in case you want to do a color that is more specific with your color theme. The first time removal can be a little tricky, but all that needs to be done is unscrew the trim piece, unhinge it, remove the mesh and place it onto the replacement trim. The build quality is very nice for the price. It's fairly light, actually, weighing in at just 2.2 pounds empty, but the internal metal construction is solid. The chassis has a rigid design throughout the entire case. There are thumb screws for the window panel, rear panel, SSD mounting plate, and PSU faceplate. The PSU shroud on the basement is non-removable. Also, there is no rubber washer included between the thumb screws on the rear panel, but for the window panel there are. The panel is straightforward to remove and easy to put back on, just as long as you tighten the screws equally to make sure the panel is flush against the frame. Like I said earlier, the acrylic panel is good quality, and it has a texturized border for gripping and handling the panel, and also it has rubber pads on the border to absorb any vibrations between the chassis and the window panel. The front panel is very easy to remove and install, and you don't need to play tug of war with it just to get it off. The front panel is also acrylic, but with a darker tint that adds a very nice aesthetic touch if you have LED fans in the front. The front panel is sharp looking and incredibly reflective, as well as the side panel. But with great reflectiveness comes with great responsibility for cleaning it, because it is very easy to get fingerprints on and also very prone to scratches. Don't worry though, with some warm water and some soap you can remove the fingerprints easily, so not too big of a deal. It's also worth noting that the front I/O panel is removable in the case that there's some connectivity issues or something that needs to be replaced. Just remove the two screws, one on each side, and pull out the I/O panel. This is very easy to access and assess in the event of connectivity issues. Moving on to the cable management, it is well thought out and easy to work with for such a compact ATX case. The rear has a decent amount of clearance on the motherboard side, but on the other side towards the front of the case, the sidewall bevels in to create more room for cable routing and management. There's also plenty of zip tie mounts for multiple configurations of zip tying cables. There's also a cable hole at the top corner of the case for the CPU power cable and other cables, which is something I specifically look for when it comes to cable management. This way you don't have to drag the CPU power cable all the way across the top of the motherboard, because that just looks terrible. And as I mentioned earlier, there are cable holes at the bottom of the PSU basement to route the cables to the bottom of the motherboard. There's only one minor issue when it came to cable management. At the front of the case, you can mount the case fans either in the front of the frame or behind it. If you decide to mount it in the front, it can be a little tricky if the case fans you have include a Molex connector with it. I know this is a specific scenario, and that's why it's not a big deal, but I can't help but think that someone may be in the same exact situation as I am. The cable holes located next to the fan were too tiny to fit a Molex connector through. It can only fit a 3 to 5 pin connector, so I routed the cables behind the fan and through the larger cable holes. Ended up working out pretty nicely, and you can't really spot the cables. Another important aspect to assess is the airflow. Airflow is important when it comes to cases, and the tempered panels on some cases can restrict airflow. For this case, the airflow is decent and gets the job done, as the intake pulls air from the top and bottom vents of the front panel, and the rear exhaust expels the heat. Or the PSU has constant airflow from the bottom of the case, and the drive bays located underneath the basement have good ventilation as well from the vents at the top of the PSU shroud. So with my closing thoughts on this case, I really love it. For $50, I don't know if I can find another case with this tier of quality, especially coming from such a popular case manufacturer, is even more surprising and gives me hope for more budget builds. The MasterBox Lite 5 delivers quality, modularity, cable management, performance, and dashing looks. This case is very sharp in terms of aesthetics. The front panel is a unique design without over-dialing the style and keeping it simple. The tempered glass look of the acrylic side panel is a huge plus to offer a nice open view of your components, and the way it looks in the dark is even cooler. No pun intended. In the dark, the acrylic side panel looks completely transparent and non-existent, so this case really pulls off that tempered glass look without having to pay for the actual tempered glass. The clearance in the case is phenomenal for its compact size, with room to breathe for a full ATX motherboard inside and GPU. The only 2 points I can address that has any sort of negative is no ventilation at the top, and the cable holes for the front frame mounted fans at the front panel are too small for a Molex connector. Obviously, those can be barely considered as cons. I highly recommend this case for budget builds and regular builds as well. Also, it's worth mentioning that this case is available in a micro ATX variant, the MasterBox Lite 3.1, which is currently $40. Currently, this PC case is going to my sister to enjoy, but I do plan on buying another one of these cases down the road for a budget build. So with all that into consideration, I'm going to have to give this case the TSG certification, as in Tech Setup Gear certification. Tech Setup Gear certification is for an outstanding piece of tech-related hardware that I highly recommend. I haven't handed out one of these in a while, but this case is definitely worth it and has earned that. I hope you all enjoyed the review, and let me know what other cases you would like me to explore in depth and review, budget and non-budget alike. Thanks for sticking around and watching the video. If this is your first time here, consider checking out the rest of the channel and subscribing to become part of the Tech Junkie family. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.